All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. We alive? We here? Oh,
We here.
y'all, we in the virtual building. We in the virtual building. Peace, 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 peace. This is your sister Rue, and I'm here with the beloved, my brother Nick. This is UnRead with Nick and Rue, and you are here with us on another Saturday. So thank you. As I said, my name is Rue, your sister, Mawa Lisa Temple, upstate New York. You know what? I would say beautiful, but it's been gray and raining and snowing and slushing. So I'm gonna just say it's real pretty up here, as long as you ain't got to go nowhere. So it's good that we got some books. So with that being said, I just want to welcome you all here. We have been having such a great time bringing this series to you. And for all of you that have joined us for every single episode, thank you so much for your support. For those of you who are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. We promise you we will give you all of us and you will be able to have a great time. And if at least, if not a great time, you got somebody to argue with because we love to talk about books. So you can give us your perspective and we'll listen to it anyway. And so with that being said, this is, for those of you who have been with us for a while, one of our surprise weeks, which means I have no idea what Nick is going to bring, and he has no idea what I'm going to bring. But believe me when I tell you, I promise you some kind of way it's going to connect because they always do. And if not, we'll find a way for them to connect. We'll find a way to tie the materials together. So again, like I said, my name is Rue. Thank you for joining us. Nick, how are you doing this week, my brother? And I'm jealous of that background, but it's okay. I just got my Hello Kitties and toys in the back, but it's all right. You go ahead.
Well, listen. I normally have my library in the background, but I'm at my parents' house right now, and it's a mess in this room. So this is here concealing all of the mess that's in the background.
Absolutely.
and I have very few spaces where I can go and be, secluded and do my thing, without having a bunch of noise and things going on in the background. So, but you can have this too. This is all you got to do is just take out a thumbnail and just set it as your background. That's all you got to do. But I'm wonderful. I'm nice and rested. It is the holiday week, so I had some days off from work, catch up with some rest and hang out with the family. So I'm in the great vibe, even though it's cold outside. I'm in the great vibe.
That's awesome.
Warm. I have not gone outside since Thursday, so I'm in here keeping warm. So I'm great.
As you should.
Yep, I'm great.
So what do you think about this being one of our surprises? Look? Do you see how fast this year is going? We are almost done. We only got two more episodes before we into January.
Yeah, that also means that we are coming up on our 1 year anniversary too.
Yes, yo, that's so amazing, man. I am so grateful for this, y'all. Yep. I tell you, let me tell y'all what kind of menace Nick is, okay? First of all, let's talk about how dedicated he is, y'all. He said he had his parents' house, and guess what he's still doing? Hanging out with us. So thank you for that, my brother. But let you know what kind of menace this man is. He sent me a link to a book space that was like rare books. And for all of y'all that know me, you know I love my rare books. Anything before like 1700s, I'm all up in it. You know what I mean? He sent me a link with so many rare books. I think I spooled my phone up with screenshots. Just screenshots. But it was diabolical, y'all, because some of the prices on these books, but it was this one handwritten book. Oh my goodness. They wanted like $2,200 for it. I was like, oh, I am putting that one on the list. But nonetheless, you know what? I tell you, y'all, we are here in 1 year anniversary, man. I can't even believe it. We've had some great guests on this year. We had the HVAC brother, we have our poetry sisters and brothers, we had our entrepreneurs and educators. We are We are rocking out, and y'all, we still got one more for y'all before we run up out of 2024. So don't be sleeping on us. We stay on the business no matter where we are, right. And we love doing it. So please don't forget to reach out to us. Our IG information is right there on the screen. I know Mr. Westbrooks keep everything tight down below, so all of our contact information is there, so I won't bore you with that. I want to know what Nick brought to the table for UnRead, because it's a surprise week, and I'm itching to know where you're coming from, brother. Where you coming from?
Well, I am coming from I'm coming from our recent conversations on Clubhouse, with our sex series, but more so the last conversation that we had discussing over sex and under love. So I decided to roll with the theme of love, since that was on my mind, and I had this book on my shelf that is a completely unread. I haven't read it yet, haven't opened it. I read the title. I may or may not have read the description of it, but it is a absolutely 100% completely unread for me. It's not an obscure book. It is coming from a New York Times best-selling author, so it might be known to some of you out there, listening. This is also a book, another gifted book from my friend Jameer. Shout outs to her once again. She might have sent those two together from the last episode with the instruction, and then this one. So in the same vein of this topic of love, my offering for this episode, hopefully it doesn't wash out in my virtual background, but I can share the screen if it does. But my offering for this episode is see, it's trying to wash out. It's trying to wash out a little.
It's trying to wash it out.
All right, there we go. The eight rules of love by Jay Shetty. Subtitle: How to Find It, Keep It, Let It Go.
Ooh.
Yep. 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty.
All right, y'all. Let's hear it, Mr. Westbrooks. What you got for us?
Yep. On the top, claims #1 New York Times best-selling author. All right, so it says this is the same author who wrote Think Like a Monk. So that one is the #1 New York Times bestseller book. So it says the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Think Like a Monk offers a revelatory guide to every stage of romance, drawing on ancient wisdom and new science. Okay. So the description goes as follows. Nobody sits us down and teaches us how to love. So we're often thrown into relationships with nothing but romantic movies and pop culture to help us muddle through until now. Instead of presenting love as an ethereal concept or a collection of cliches, Jay Shetty lays out specific actionable steps to help you develop the skills to practice and nurture love better than ever before. He shares insights on how to win or lose together, how to define love, and why you don't break in a breakup. Inspired by Vedic wisdom and modern science, he tackles the entire relationship cycle from first dates to moving in together to breaking up and starting over. And he shows us how to avoid falling for false promises and unfulfilling partners. By living Jay Shetty's 8 rules, we can all love ourselves, our partner, and the world better than we ever thought possible. So let's see what the 8 rules are. And then, so we see what the 8 rules are, give an overview to that, learn a little bit more about the author, and then I'll pass it on. So looking at the table of contents, this book is broken up into 4 parts. Part 1 is called solitude. Part 2 is called compatibility. Part 3 is called healing. And part 4 is called connection. Now, the rules are the titles of the chapters. So I'll just list off the 8 rules, which are the 8 chapters. And share what else is included in here, and I'll close off with sharing some additional information about the author. So under part one of solitude, you have rules 1 and 2. Rule number 1 is let yourself be alone. Rule number 2 is don't ignore your karma. And after those 2 rules, and it looks like after each part, at the end of each part, there's a love letter and there's a meditation. So at the end of part 1, which is solitude, under rule 1 and 2, let yourself be alone and don't ignore your karma. There's a love letter to yourself and a meditation for solitude. Now, in the part 2, compatibility, you have rules 3 through 5. Rule number 3, define love before you think it, feel it, or say it. Rule number 4, your partner is your guru. Rule number 5, purpose comes first. And then this one is a love letter to your partner. As on the part 1, it was a love letter to yourself. Part 2 is a love letter to your partner. And under part 1, the meditation was for solitude. This meditation is for compatibility. Now, in the part 3, healing, you have rules 6 and 7, which are rule number 6, win or lose together. Rule 7, don't break in the breakup. And the love letter to help you heal, followed by the meditation to heal through love. And under part 4, connection, you have rule number 8, love again and again, love letter to the world, and meditation to connect. Okay. And the book includes, of course, the usual parts, the acknowledgments, the author's notes. You have some notes back here as well, some footnotes from different research and sources, lots of footnotes. And then there's a section for next steps, which I would assume would be what someone who's read this book, what they can do after they completed reading the book and started to put into action the tips that the book puts forth. And just some information about the author. Like I mentioned, Jay Shetty is a #1 New York Times bestseller, award-winning storyteller. He's also a podcast host, a former monk dedicated to helping people train their minds for peace and purpose every day. In 2017, Forbes named him to their 30 under 30 list for his game-changing impact in media. His viral videos have been viewed more than 10 billion times, and he is followed by over 50 million people across social media. In 2019, Jay created On Purpose, now the world's #1 health and wellness podcast. He's been a keynote speaker around the world, invited to Google, Microsoft, Netflix, and American Express, among many others. Over 2 million people have attended his online school, and his genius coaching community provides weekly programming on health and wellness to thousands of members in over 100 countries. Jay is the Chief Purpose Officer at Calm and co-founded Joyo Tea with his wife, Radhi. And that's the author right there, Jay Shetty. And this is another one I'm excited to get into and read. And being that it sounds very practical, sounds like some a tool that I can use in my love journey, as I spent considerable amount of time, especially on that first part with the solitude. I spend most of my life in solitude when it comes to romantic love. So, I plan on taking an inventory on that, to make sure I'm on the right track in terms of that, and then, proceed forward with the compatibility aspects of it, and I guess preparing myself for hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. And this book kind of sounds like, you can use it almost like a reference too. You can go to the section of the book that is most applicable to you and put into action the tools that are in here. But for a lot of us, a lot of people out here who need the foundation and may have jumped around from parts 1 to part 4 in their journeys, whether it was in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. A lot of people might have to go back and read this book from cover to cover and start from the foundation and work their way through it. Some people jump to the compatibility part, before they uh, learn the solitude part. Some people might have experienced the breakup before they experience the solitude and the true compatibility. Some people may have stopped at the breakup part or the healing part and haven't transcended to the connection part yet. So I feel that there's probably something for everyone in here, regardless of their background, their experiences, their relationship status, single, in a relationship, married, divorced, whatever it may be. This book really sounds like there is something for anyone, everyone in here, like I said, regardless of experiences, relationship status, race, color, creed, background. We know that love is, transcends all of those things. And it makes me think about the lessons too, going back to the lessons, going back to the supreme alphabet, where we go to the letter L. Love is the highest elevation of human understanding and compassion. So we're dealing with an energy that is the highest, probably the highest vibration, the highest elevation of, like I said, understanding, human compassion, and things of that nature. So that is my offering for this episode, 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. How to find it, keep it, and let it go.
Well. You never cease to, bring the energy, man. I'm loving it. And for those of you who don't know, for the past month or so, we've been doing on Clubhouse a series on sex. And our last topic was oversexed and underloved. Unfortunately, it didn't record, so that was weird. But nonetheless, you can join us for our next conversation next Thursday in the spot. Not going to give away the title to that one yet, but be in the spot because we be blowing it up. You know what I'm saying? But that book, Mr. Westbrook, sounds amazing. When you first read the table of contents, I was saying to myself, solitude first makes sense. That's what I thought about, because I thought about, as you read the different chapters, you could see why solitude is so important before the breakup, before the couple, before any of that. Because if you can't do the solitude, the breakup will break you. You know what I mean? And so I agree that you definitely can use this type of work at any stage. The other thing that surprised me about this book with this author is I've been in the health and wellness field for 25 years, 26 years, something like that. Never heard of this guy. But it sounds like he do amazing work and has a large following in the health and wellness field. So the fact that I've never heard of him, y'all, this is why we do these talks, not just with you guys, but with each other, because we can't read everything, even though we try. Damn it, we will try to read it all. That's why we got so many unread books. But nonetheless, this is why we share these things, because many times when you share, the latter benefits better than the former. There's a saying about that in Islam. You learn something, you share it, for the latter may understand it better than the former, or be able to use it or utilize it. And if you ever notice, a lot of times when you are going through something, what you need comes to you right away. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. People think this always means a person. Sometimes it could just be a manuscript, a book, to tell you, hey, look at yourself, or look at these things. My question to you would be, one of the first things you read was, nobody sits us down and talks to us about love at any point. Can you share with us, for you said, solitude is the part that you've done, for a long time, and you were comfortable in that space. Did in that solitude space you learn what love was, or shape and mold the space for what love is or looks like? Or did you have to wait till you got into the situation and try to figure it out from there, since nobody really gives us a foundation or a background?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say it's probably been a combination of both, and experience as well as observation, observing what now. Well, actually, let me backtrack. I won't say that. All right, so no one sits us down and talks to us about this in a very formal type of sense. Like, here, let's sit down and let's talk about love. We a lot of us end up being taught about it in indirect ways. Whether we're, like I said, through observation, we're observing people we might know. We might observe our parents. We might observe other people that are in our vicinity or organizations. We might observe media. We might observe music. We might listen. We listen to love songs. Especially our elders. The love songs from back in their day. So these are all areas where I've heard about love and kind of picked up on love. Now the tricky part is your, I guess, your mental outlook, or your attitude towards the subject. Because if you're only shown one aspect of love, whether it's positive or negative, it can skew your reality of what love is and what love isn't. So I could say, thankfully, I've been exposed to a variety of depictions and instances and experiences, whether directly or indirectly, of what love looks like, or how love has been depicted, or how it's been perceived. And love is just such a broad topic, a broad subject. And if you line up 10 people and ask them to define love, it's very likely you'll get 10 different responses. You might find some similarities, across the board, but from person to person, it can vary, especially when you get into like the very small nuances. Of course, I would say there are some very obvious things, like if someone is beating you down, or abusing you, then that's, some people might call that love, but they're definitely not calling it love in the positive sense of it. So that brings me to this idea that love love can be a neutral concept when you really think about it. Because how can we tell someone that them being abused is not love. You know, maybe it is love, but just not a healthy love. Maybe it's a toxic love or an unhealthy love. So that's something that I'm curious about in this book of how he defines love, and does he see it as a neutral term that we just kind of characterize into subcategories, but I'm going like the long long-winded answer, but I would say the short to the long of it is that yeah, it's been a combination of my own reflections, but just based on what I've been exposed to, whether directly, indirectly, real or imagined, fictional or non-fictional. All of those played as factors into how I define it for myself.
Well, let me just say, I don't mind along with the answer, and I don't think our audience do either, because you made some very great points, and I think points that all of us can resonate with at some particular point. I really had to smile when you talked about how, the things we're exposed to give you this framework or idea of what love looked like, and depending on who your parents were and what their relationships like, and the things that they promoted or either believed in themselves or did themselves, actually does have a reflection on the way that we view love. I'll give you a funny story, and I tell everybody this story because when I really realized that I didn't know what love was for real, it was like, oh, it wasn't like this fairy tale that I was sold, So, when I was young, listened to a lot of Motown, Blue Magic, Stylistics, Delphonics, the Dramatics, the Supremes, you know what I'm saying? Walking in the rain with the one I love, you know what I'm saying? Life is a 3-ring circus, Chocolate Girl, and Daddy's Home, and all these different songs. I remember in my very first, because I got married right out of high school. So I was still a child, but I remember the reality of this is not what that song said. I was like, wait a minute, where's all the whispers, make love to the sun come up, and gentle caresses and kisses down your back. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, this is not what I signed up for, son. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought I was getting that. And, and it's so funny because, not getting married right out of high school, what it didn't allow for was that time of solitude, because you figure you go from being in your parents' house straight into your husband's house or to your wife's house. So when that's the case, you only repeat what you just saw. And if you saw things that were unhealthy, because you have no other framework and you haven't had any time to sit and discern for yourself what it's shaped and looked like, you're going to repeat what you just saw. And trust me, mine was toxic. And it took me some time to realize that I wasn't even, I wasn't the one so much, I don't want to say doing, because I don't want it to sound like I'm pointing fingers. I didn't know what toxic looked like. Put it like that. I thought, like you said, oh, it's natural for the man to yell at the lady, or, oh, you're supposed to do this particular thing because that's how that go. And this is how you prove you love somebody. You know what I'm saying? And I was raised in that generation where you don't leave nobody no matter what they do. No matter what they do, you got to stay with them because you made a vow and that's what it is. And so I thought that's what love was making this vow and sticking to it, regardless. Whether you was happy or not was not the question. You know what I'm saying? So I love that he goes through that, and I love that he offers those love letters, and I'm almost interested to wonder if that isn't part of one of the other aesthetic practices, because you did say Vedic wisdom. because there's a lot of Vedic wisdom that deals with writing these letters to yourself. You know what I mean? And being able to read out loud, you know what I'm saying, these words that either have hindered us from growth or experiencing what real love is, or jumping in, you know, with all things and falling down and finding out it wasn't what you thought it was. So I think that's fantastic, amazing. And you know, you grew up in a household that your parents are still together. How many years has it been?
Goodness. Let me see. I think it's a quote close about like 30, 37 years, 36, 37 years, something like that.
That take work, y'all. For all y'all who can't stay in a relationship 37 days, 37 years. I remember somebody saying that to me one time. Their parents had been married like 45 years. I said, man, sometimes I can't imagine liking somebody for 45 days. You know what I'm saying? Just because in those 45 days, you find out things that's just like, wow, okay, this is above my pay grade. But, you know, the other thing I wanted to ask you about this book and its potential to help the person along their love journey is I'm interested if when he was writing this book, was it more from viewing the world on the outside or from the experiences he had on the inside? And I think that makes a big difference because, you know, one of the things that I was told by an elder at the beginning of my journey when I was 21 years old, they told me that you study and you share what you end up needing the most. You think you be studying it to share it with somebody else. It'd be like, no, this is for you. You
Right.
need this. You might be sharing it with folks, but this is for you. Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know, I think that's one of the things that allows me to dive deeper into my books. But that sounds like a great book. And just like the one you offered the last time, I can definitely see how these books can be used for that continuous process of refinement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
Mm-hmm.
as you said, love is such a broad and amazing and spectacular thing. Nobody can put it in a box and say what it is, because if you ask some people, they tell you everything is love.
Right.
You know, the world is love, life is love. You know, and some people just love a pizza. You feel me? And that's
Yeah.
legitimate because they can love pizza, but it ain't the same thing as loving a person or a pet or whatever, you know, or just loving life, you know. So I think that, you know, I think the part that I really, really would be interested in is that solitude part of it, because I didn't learn that until much later. And the way that ended up happening for me was, you figure you get married right away, you start having children right away. So I never had a dull moment in my house. It was never quiet where I lived. It's always been somebody where I live. And the first time I ever had to just sit alone by myself, I was like, hey, anybody making no noise? Nobody's asking for nothing. And then my mind just said, well, what do you want? Why would you even ask me that? I have no idea. I have no idea what I want. I know what everybody else want. You know, I know what everything else
Yeah.
look like. You know, and the other thing I wanted to bring back to you is, how do you see this book relating to the topic that we talked about in Clubhouse of being oversexed and underloved?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the points that we discussed on Clubhouse was, you know, what was that whole education part of it. You know, that whole sitting down of, you know, discussing, well, I guess in the context of love, you know, sex, but yeah, discussing love and what it is, and also how holistic it really is. You said when we were, you know, the main topic was sex, and you said that we're not talking about the physical aspects of sex. We're talking about the spiritual, the emotional aspects of it too. So I think in the same way it relates to love in that we have to view it holistically, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It all it's all connected. It all matters, and it's all connected. It's all important. So that's where I see the connection comes into play, and then at the topic of sex when it comes to love, whether sex is love or is it not. How our experiences, and even how being men and being women, how it differs in that sense of how sex relates to love. Whether is it an aspect of love itself, or is it love, or is it just a physical physical activity. Some people see it that way. I obviously in our conversation, it's much deeper than that. But a lot of people just especially men, just see it as a physical activity. And I'll say not just men, more and more women are seeing it that way in modern times too, as just a physical activity, and not having any emotional cause, emotional or spiritual causes and effects. So how love relates to sex is definitely a clear connection between this book and our clubhouse conversations.
I absolutely agree. I really resonate with that answer. And I'm thinking about how when we were having that conversation, we had a very mixed room in terms of age group, which I thought was really important. And I strive to invite everyone. You are welcome. There are no fees. Look, you ain't gotta be, and you ain't gotta be. Just show up. You need an invitation. Get the link from myself, from Nick. We are glad to have you. You know what I mean? And we really do have some thought provoking conversations. And when I'm in making my invitation list, I'm very deliberate to try to invite people from every age group. And I do that because some of us have a very antiquated way of thinking. And I say some of us because I'll say this next thing. I was raised to think that you didn't have sex with anybody you didn't love. So when I was having sex, I'm thinking, well, this is love. And for somebody else, they was like, no, this is sex. And this is like, oh, okay, what does that mean? So does that mean you don't love me? Like, wait, well, why'd you do this if this is only for the people that's in love? I was very naive, like just I was a kid, and many of us are kids when these things start to develop. And so that key opener that you gave, that nobody sits down and talks with us, I have to ask you as an educator, do you see us being able to sit down with our children, with our youth, and talk to them about what real love is, if we can even put a lid on what real love is? Like, how do you even begin a conversation like that with our youth today? Because as you said, it's not just our young men that think the way that they think anymore. I know more women than less that will tell you they will just have relations and they have no use for all the rest of the madness. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So how do you think as an educator we should face this? Because they used to have sex education, but I ain't never remember them having love education.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, they didn't have it. And I that's you reminded me to bring up what we're doing in class currently in one of my courses. Now, uh, I teach an AP literature, advanced placement literature and composition class, and we're currently going through our short fiction, short story unit. And the story that we're actually in the middle of reading, which also reminded me, was a driving force or influence in me picking this book for this episode, is we're reading a short story called What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver, published in 1981. And it's a short story in which you have two couples, a man, a man and a woman, two sets of men and women. They're sitting around the table, drinking some gin and tonics, and they're discussing and they're talking about love. They're talking about their experiences, and they're all coming from a different perspective based on their experiences. So you got one character who was in an abusive relationship, and then you have another character who who's a divorcee, and they're going through a co-parenting, their co-parenting struggles. So it's very interesting. So to answer your question, uh, within the educational system, we all have our disciplines. So sex education, that's more of the biological, physical, that's the bare bones of it. It's just it's just discussing it from a biological aspect. I think with my subject, teaching English, and we in reading text like this, we incorporate the text into the curriculum. And in this modern age, everything is considered a text, whether it's in print, whether it's audio like music, whether it's video, whether it's a movie, a TV show. These are all things that we analyze, not only for their literary elements, but also for their content and for the perspectives and the point of view. So one of the questions that we'll be discussing with this story, what we talk about when we talk about love, is what is each character's perspective on the topic of love? How do they compare? How are they similar? How are they different? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? So these are the type of conversations or ways that you can start the conversations, especially on that level, working with high school students, because a lot of them are starting to get into relationships and dating and sex and things like that. As a matter of fact, we have a program, it's kind of like an offshoot of the health class, but we have a group of students who are being trained to be peer educators, and they just did a program last week, well, actually earlier this week, about it was about sex, but having those conversations with each other, especially if they're dating or the couples centered about being ready for sex and having clear communication about expectations and being prepared or being not prepared. So you have those disciplines, within within the social studies or the history. I think I brought up the topics of the politics of sex during the clubhouse conversation, and how has it played out in history, and how has it played out in the political sphere with revolutions, feminist movements, sexual revolution. That's where the historical aspect comes into it. So there's ways to implement it or incorporate it into formal education, but of course we should have conversations with young people outside of the formal setting, because the formal setting doesn't cover every aspect of it. It doesn't necessarily cover the spiritual aspect of it. It might touch on some of the emotional parts of it, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't get deeply enough into the emotional aspects of it. So this is when we have our community partners or our community organizations come in and as guest speakers and talk to the students, or we have our parent teacher organizations where we have the parents and the students come and discuss these topics after school hours. So I think that's a good place to start, by creating those spaces and those opportunities, wherever we can fit them in.
Right. I totally agree, yo. And let me just say, Thank you for that. And thank you for what you do. You are a hero. You are a community hero. I tell you that all the time. All my teachers that are listening, men and women, we love you. We appreciate you. We know people will never give you all the flowers you deserve because, but trust me, it is not easy, especially in this day and time. And, I think it's important that we say that when like you said, when we were talking about sex, we weren't really talking about the physical act of it as much as we were the other aspects and the other things that are affected in, even in sex education and talking about it from the biological aspect, they don't talk about the physiological changes that take place in a person once they have sexual relations. So especially when you're young and you haven't even gotten out of puberty yet, so I am a grandma and I have teenage granddaughters. And my son and I were talking one time, and we were talking about how I don't think that I could be a parent today. And what I mean by that is that I look at some of the things they teach in school at such an early age, and I'm not with it. I feel like at a certain age, children shouldn't know certain things. And when and I'm not saying that we keep our children ignorant. For all of those who listen, that's not what I'm saying. But I feel like people forget the innocence that goes before being introduced to all of that. Because it's once you're introduced to that, there's no going back. You can't take the innocence back. Once you out there, and the very real things that these young people feel after they've been engaged in some of these, relationships, healthy or unhealthy, goes back to that piece you were talking about with solitude and really, getting to know yourself and what your true view is on love. And not only that, realizing that even if you think you know what love is now, or you have a definition of it now, it most likely will change as you grow. As you grow and as you refine it, as you develop, this is, something that should grow. I think this is a fascinating book, Nick. I'll tell y'all like this. We never ever disappoint each other.
We don't.
So y'all just here basically, you know what I'm saying, to either get on with us or just listen to us geek about these books that we just got that we ain't read. Right. And we want to know which ones you haven't read. I want to ask you one last question because I know you like, well, dang. But
no, you good. You good.
One last question because for those of you who don't know, Mr. Westbrooks, my brother Nick, he is the foremost, and I'm gonna say foremost because I'm claiming it, numerologist of our young times right now. One of the up and coming, surely to be scholars, elders at one day, of numerology. Supreme Numerics is his company. And let me let you know, the brother can go in on some numerology. So with that being said, I'm about to ask you, what is the numerology for love?
Oh yeah, me and you, we right here, because that's what I was going to close out with on mine, was because
I told y'all we always connected. We always connected, y'all.
Yes,
that's my brother.
Yep, you already know.
All right, bring it,
it's
bro.
Very, and it's right in alignment with many of the points we brought up and kind of alluded to. And so, just to give a quick crash course with numerology, of course, you could take the numbers of someone's birthday to break down the characteristics and the traits about that person. But we also could take the letters. Each letter in the alphabet has a numerical value, so we're able to break down the meaning and vibrations of words numerically. And those words can tell us vibrations, just like the letters in someone's name can tell us characteristics and traits about that person. The letters in a word can give us the vibration of certain words and phrases. And I use two systems of numerology, the Chaldean and the Pythagorean. The Chaldean is the older system of numerology. Pythagorean is the modern system, the newer system, both of which are accurate. But Chaldean, the older system, is a little bit more it's a little bit more accurate. And it's a little bit more mystical and more occult. And it also takes into account the compound meaning of the numbers, while the Pythagorean, uh, you can look at the compound meaning of the numbers, but most of the time you look primarily at the base number in which you reduce it to a single digit. As in numerology, we use a phatic system in which we uh, continually add until we reach the single digit. But I look at things holistically, as I've been taught by one of my teachers, to look at it holistically. So I look at both systems. I look at the compound numbers and the single digit numbers. And what you'll find in the word love is very fascinating. So in the Chaldean system, it adds up to the number 18. And in the Chaldean system, we look at the meaning of the numbers as it relates to the tarot. So in the tarot deck, the number 18 is the moon card. And look at because Rue know about the tarot. See, I know a little bit about the tarot. I'm not that deep into it, but I know by saying the moon card, she's like, of course it's the moon card. Tied to that intuition and imagination and that mystery. I think I mentioned the ambiguity of love. This is just a reminder that love is ambiguous with that 18, the moon card. And when you reduce it down to a number 9, is going back to what I was saying in the opening about 9 being a highest vibration or highest level of human understanding and compassion. Number 9 represents that high level of humanitarianism, that high level of love and leadership on the positive side. Remember, this duality, this positive and the negative side. But on the negative side, that 9 is connected to Mars. So we talk about war and fighting and violence and things like that, whether it's physical or it's verbal. so it's definitely very much in alignment with how challenging and difficult it is to kind of put love into a box and define it. And also with the moon card, you also have to be aware of that deception too. Love can be deceptive when you get, especially when you allow the emotional part to overpower the logical part. The moon is connected to water, and water is connected to emotions, and the moon is connected to our emotions. Now, love in the Pythagorean system adds up to the number 21, which reduces down to a 3. Now, looking at the compound of the 21, you have the 2 in front of the 1, the 2 representing companionship, representing partnership, teamwork, togetherness. So it's emphasizing the partnership and teamwork aspect of it, but you have the 1 behind it too as a reminder not to lose oneself, not to lose your individuality when you're coming together with another person, and unifying and having that companion. And then when you add 2 plus 1 together, you get the 3. 3 is the number of growth and expansion. So on the positive side, you can grow. I mean, you can grow by yourself when you're in that solitude stage of love. But when you're with someone else, you can grow and expand with someone else. But on the negative side, if love is, issues of love on the negative side can be tied to, gossip, it can be tied to scandal. Oftentimes when we hear about, scandals, they relate to love.
Right.
Love or the lack of love.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how I see it, numerically.
Wow, that's so interesting. And Nick and I have been talking, we always trying to bring out the highest quality information and conversations. And we just been talking about how we gonna have some bonus bills. Because when we start talking, let me let you know, it's so much further that we can go right now. Like I'm
Yep.
sitting here thinking about the numbers, and I'm like, I see how we can build on that. I see how that makes sense. It's just like when you said the moon card. I said, of course, it's the moon card. You know what I mean? And there's so many ways that we can continue to go into this and go deeper, and just really connect with our inner teacher. That's what we share in these books for y'all. It's not for y'all to just take our opinions of the books or our summaries of the books and say, oh, well, this is whatever. It just be like, yo, here's some information. This might resonate with you. Check it out. You know what I mean? Some of it you might want, some of it you don't. But it's very important that we continue to do that refinement process. And I really am grateful that you brought this book. And I'm like right now I could be finished. I feel like I feel like, well, that was a great talk. Now we done now.
It's like
But
we didn't even give y'all a rules book yet.
oh, I know. So that's why I'm telling them they gotta join us when we do these bonus bills, because the bonus bills basically what they're gonna be doing is continuing these conversations, because one of the things that we enjoy are asking questions here, and because we realize questions take you deeper into contemplation and self-reflection and self-refinement, and that's what we are all about. So one final question for you.
And for real this time.
What what, if anything, is the one thing you'd like to walk away from this book?
Okay. The one thing I would like to walk away from, man. Because I think I kind of alluded to a couple of things when I was discussing the contents, but if I had to narrow it down to one, I guess it would be the second line in that subtitle. So to repeat the entire subtitle, is called "How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go." And let it go is interesting, but that's another conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. That has to
That's
be for
something
the
else.
bonus.
That's something else.
But keeping it, because I think that relates back to what you were saying about how these marriages have lasted, 30, 40, 50 years. That's where the keep it part is for me. And I think especially for people of my generation, I think that's the part of it that's, I guess you could say it's the struggle, but it's the fight. It's we have a lot of people my generation saying that the reason why the older generations lasted so long was because they just dealt with the toxicity. They didn't, like you said, we don't leave under no conditions. So it's like just keeping in mind that just because the marriage stayed together for so long doesn't mean it was a healthy marriage.
Right.
So I guess the one thing I want to take away is in the sense of the keep it part of this subtitle, not only how to stay together with someone for the longevity, but to stay together and to be a healthy and joyous and happy,
Yes.
companionship.
Yes. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I wasn't trying to put you in the spot, by the way. No, but I will say, I will say that, one of the things I remember telling a group of young ladies that I was working with in Jersey, where I'm from, y'all. Gotta go always go back to my bricks and give back to my bricks. But
Right.
I was talking to a room of young ladies and young mothers, new mothers, and I was, explaining to them that, just because something was done don't mean it was done right, and what's right for one person may not be right for the other. But at the end of the day, anything that is not helping you grow is hindering you or killing you. And that's basically what it is. And we have to remember a lot of people stay married for different reasons, for show, for the children, for the finances, for the whatever, but it'd be a lot of other things that be unhealthy that continue to skew our view of what love is. So I think that this book could be a great opportunity for people to go in and maybe take a look at what they view as love and start to maybe redefine it or clean it up for themselves, or maybe just add some things that weren't there, So great offering, great offering. Man, like I said, I'm about done now. That was good. Wasn't that good, y'all? Come on, let's give it up for Mr. Westbrook. Show that book one more time, brother. Show that book one more time. Show that book one more. So you gotta put it right up in here because you're gonna
Yeah, I'm gonna share it on the screen so you get better.
Yes, y'all. Make sure that if you get this book, let us know, y'all. I appreciate that. We love to hear your thoughts on it. All right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can you zoom in on the picture of the author again for the people? Because I don't think they got to see that when
oh yeah, there you go.
When you were showing it in the back.
Is that bigger?
Yeah, that we see his name. We don't see his picture. We see those small over.
The picture. Go over here. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So there's the author, y'all. There's the author. And yeah, thank you, Mr. Westbrooks. We will definitely put that on our list. We definitely put that on our list. That's a banger. Now I think I need to take a breath.
Yeah, if you need to get a sip, get a sip of water or something. I'm sipping my water right now.
No, because you want to know what? Like, I feel like, I guess because we're doing this series on not just sex. This is a mini series, guys. By the way, we are doing a larger series, Unmasking Morality, and in man, how we could tie all of that in right now. That's why I said whole 2-hour bonus video is needed just for this particular topic. So, sitting here and get ready to bring this topic, I'm like, well, it ain't tying the way I thought it was going to tie in, y'all, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm curious.
It's a good one. All right. So y'all get it, Mr. Westbrooks, for that numerology. I'm telling y'all, listen, he did some numerology for me on 2-3 occasions, and let me let you know, it was good information. It was good stuff. It helped me more than, like, it kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And when I walked away, he gives you, you can either do a video with him, and you can have that, or you can have a verbal recording, or he can write it out for you. Let me let you know, the brother is thorough. The brother is thorough, y'all. Get your readings, get your work done. Use these tools for your benefit. This is why we share this information. So, with that being said, my book this week, my book, let me tell you, I was picking my book and I was going through my books and I was like, which should I share? And one of the things I realized was a lot of my books obviously are centered around the same kind of topics, the same kind, the occult sciences, all these different things like that. So, a lot of that stuff includes what people consider religious texts or lost religious texts or in information in that way. And so I am a question person. So I will ask you 9,000 questions. I'll ask you 9,000 questions. I'm like, and why did that happen? And when did that happen? And who did it? And why did I want to know everything. I want to know everything. So I am going to share this book with you. So for those that don't know, every year we do a fall and winter study, right? And in our fall and winter studies, we it's certain books that we do every year, and then there's certain books that we bring on, to swap out other books. And because of the position I've held as Dean of Education for the last 20 something years, automatically when I get a book, I break it into a curriculum. I go in looking for thought-provoking questions. I go in and I look at the text and see how it's tied together and all these technical things that y'all don't have to deal with. So I do all that. So y'all can come for this part. This is the entertainment, because you know how we get down. But one of the books that we cover all the time is Retire Your Family Karma. Everybody know we do that one, and a lot of other spiritual books. And so this book right here is a complete. I can't say a complete unread because of the reason I bought the book. So I'm just gonna share it. I'm gonna slide it up here, and bam, here it is. This is the book that I bring it, the original Maccabees Bible with Psalm 151 in there. And for all of my theologians, y'all know in the Bible as y'all have it stands right now, you got 150. So what they talk about in 151, we're gonna talk about in this book. So how did I end up with this book? We talk about the different texts and how, regardless of your race, creed, religious thoughts, background, you can take any book if you are a true seeker and find something in it that is thought-provoking and allowing you to grow, spiritually in your walk. And so when I was getting ready to write the curriculum one year, we were going to do a 1-year study on Judaism, and the Kabbalah, the mystical Kabbalah, all of that good stuff like that. And, a lot of that text, takes you into the Gnostic space. You know what I mean? So you start talking about the books of the Bible that weren't included, the writings about the Bible way before the Bible, before the Christian era, and all those different things like that. So I got to do my nerd thing and read y'all some stuff first. Okay. All right. So Reverend Dr. Roderick M. McLean, right? It says the original Maccabees Bible with Psalms 151 offers us a fresh look at the story of the Maccabees, a Jewish rebellion against oppression in the 2nd century BCE. Instead of just focusing on the historical battles, the book uses the Maccabees struggle as a metaphor for our own inner battles, and adds Psalm 151, a psalm usually left out of modern Bibles, to deepen the spiritual understanding of the story. The approximate timeline for these events: 167 BCE, before Christian era. For those who don't know, BCE, the Maccabean revolt begins. The Seleucid king tries to force Hellenistic, which is the Greek culture and religion, on the Jews, leading to a widespread rebellion. In 164 BCE, the Jews, led by Judah Maccabee, recaptured the temple in Jerusalem, rededicated a celebration still observed today as Hanukkah. For all of those who don't know, Hanukkah got mad power with it. Y'all really need to check in on Hanukkah because it got some jewels in there. Following the decades, the Maccabees continue fighting for their independence and religious freedom. The period is marked by ongoing conflict and eventually the establishment of a Hasmonean dynasty. And it talks about the Maccabees fights in these mirrors. They mirror in these stories mirrors our own internal struggles against things like doubt, fear, and the pressure to conform. And one of the things we talk most about in Mawalisa Temple is freeing yourself from the boxes of religion and dogma that will allow you to just explore and free yourself from that and live your best life learning about all the things, right? Some people think that's confusion, but it's really not. Inner strength. The book emphasizes finding your own inner strength and connecting to something greater than yourself, just as the Maccabees found strength through their faith. It shows how God helped the Maccabees and encourages readers to recognize their own God's help in their own lives. In the inclusion of Psalm 151, a lesser known psalm attributed to King David, adds a layer of spiritual insight, showing how even historical figures face the spiritual challenges. The Maccabees' perseverance, despite overwhelming odds, teaches the importance of staying strong in the face of adversity. And finally, the book examines the importance of justice and doing what's right, regardless of the cost. And you know, Nick, this takes us back to our unmasking morality. And, you know, it's so funny because these topics, like I said, usually end up overlapping and tying together. So the book here, it says it's classified as religion, Judaism, and Hebrew studies, right? And it was published by the Research Associate School of Time Publications and Frontline Distribution International. They call it a collector's jewel. So, you know, just for that reason, I had to have it anyway. Collector's jewel. And it says, I beseech thee, therefore, those that read this book, that they be not discouraged because of the calamities, but account that these punishments were not for the destruction, but for chastising of the race. And indeed, for those who act impiously will not be let alone any long time, but straightway meet with retribution, a sign of great beneficence. And I think that was interesting. I thought it was interesting. And so you will not find this in the Bible for obvious reasons. It was before the Christian era. You know, for all those people who hold so tightly to the Bible, I'd be like, what do you think they was doing before that? Nothing? You think they wasn't doing nothing? You know, they was doing something. And so when I picked up this book, my intention was to go in and go ahead and draw do a curriculum that would take us over the course of about a year, you know, maybe 9 months to 12 months to cover these things, because you had to cover so much to be able to really understand the time periods you were in, what was going on politically, historically, and otherwise, especially religiously. And so in this Maccabees Bible, it has an introduction, and then first Maccabees, second Maccabees, third Maccabees, then Psalm 151, and then fourth Maccabees. So the first and second Maccabees were part of the Latin Bible. And in the Protestant church, they were not included amongst the canonical books. They were part of the Apocrypha. And for those of you who don't know about the Apocrypha was a book composed from the text taken out of what is known as the Bible today by the Council of Nicaea, And that's how that was done. It says this book was withdrawn from holy use. The Jewish standard of judgment was accepted, and they did not part from the Hebrew Bible. It says in the 39 articles of the Anglican Church, it is said that the Apocrypha, other books of the church, doth be read for examination, examples of life, instruction, and manners, but does not apply to them to establish any doctrine. So basically, they letting you know, yeah, you got the Bible, but for those learning people that's on that left-hand path, this is what you need, because this got some information that's not over there for everybody else. And it really takes you into a deeper place. Now, what I will say is that one of the reasons we didn't use this book was because many people had not truly grasped how the Maccabees came to be, because you don't hear about them much. And I have a really mind-blowing thing, because last night, let me tell you something. I called myself putting my notes together and everything, and I end up reading and being another 3 other books. And I'm just like, what am I doing right now? You know what I'm saying? I'm doing all the things. You know,
that's how it always happens.
I'm doing all the things, right? So I'm just like, okay. So I was like, what is it that I really want to bring from this? And you know, and so when I thought about it, it just became one of those things where I felt like it wouldn't be beneficial to teach it without a formal history. You know what I'm saying? Without people having a formal history, or at least an introduction to the history. So when I'm sitting last night and I'm like, well, how am I going to bring this book to show them how this ties all in? Nick, it is a surprise week. So hold your horses.
Oh, boy.
I had to bring out this book.
What you got there?
It says from text to tradition. It says the history. It has a history of the Second Temple and the rabbinic Judaism and rabbinic Judaism. Let me just say for the record, I don't know who did all this writing back in the day, but they could have came up with a whole lot of shorter words, because some of these words, some of these names, some of these words, they be blowing my mind, but that's going to take us to something good at the end. So you just hold on. So in this book here, the reason this was going to be a part of this study with this particular book was it talks about taking the text that was used as their political law, if you will, because you have to remember, they let us know that the Old Testament dealt with the law. You know what I'm saying? So you won't hear about none of this stuff when you read in New Testament works, only when you go outside and you look into the apocryphal works, or you look into books like this. And one of the beauties of this book, and let me just say, because I told you how I got this. You see this book right here? Let me tell you, whenever my library puts a bunch of books on the sidewalk, I go to like 6 different libraries, y'all. I am a true book nerd. And whenever they put out books, if they tell me, if I get my little alert telling me they putting out books on the weekend, I am there. Let me just say for the record, I am with y'all right now. And you know where I could be? Getting some music, because WJFF is having their once in a year album sale. And I always go get me some good opera. Yeah, I get myself some good R&B, but I'm here. So rock with me, cook with me, be here with me. And I thank you. So I pulled out this book because to talk about the Maccabees, again, you don't find them in many places. So my thought was, well, when I got that book, how did I intend on leading up to them, since you never hear about them anywhere else? So I thought about this book, because this book takes the law and shows us how they took the text that they followed as law and used it across history to write a history story. They used it to write their law, use the law to write the history, to control their politics, and to control religion. So they took this book from text to tradition. So they letting you know already, they created this control source for you. Okay. And that's the thing that's so cool about this, because what do we talk about? Learning how to think for yourself and deprogram and decondition ourselves from the dogma and the lies that we were told that were written and put in place to keep us in a place of what? Servitude, slavery. And right. What did it tell us when in Dr. McLean's book, the studying of the Maccabees and their struggles is to take us into ourselves and teach us about truly being free. Because people think just because they walk around, they get in their car, they go where they want to go, and they think they free. They think they free. Let me let y'all know, some of us ain't free. If you want to get free, we'll talk to some more folks, but there's some interesting things we could tell you. We got some references, y'all. We got some references. So I pulled out this book and I was like, oh, it's going to be so unfair. I'm bringing out more than one book, but I got to have a source. I'm an Aquarian. I got to have receipts. So when I pulled out this book, the first thing I went looking for, I went in the back and I went in the index and I looked for the Maccabees. And basically half of the M's deal with the Maccabees. They got the Maccabean period, they got the Maccabean revolt, they got the Maccabees themselves, and they got the books of the Maccabees. You know what I'm saying? So I went in and I'm like, okay, so what they got to say about the Maccabees? And when they first make mention of them is on page, amen. I said I didn't want to do too many notes because this is definitely a bonus hit them up later kind of thing. On page 65 is the first place that they are mentioned. So let me just say this book was falling apart, but I got it. But since I've had it, trust me, it's falling apart even more and not on purpose. Okay, so in page 65, they start talking about the kings, in the years of conflict between the rival parties or the Jewish parties or factions. So basically what they letting you know where we are in a period of time is when the Jewish faith was dividing itself. It was dividing itself. Somebody had a beef. They was like, I don't believe we should be doing that. They said, I don't believe we should be doing this. And people just were stepping off, right? So I found it very important that they went into how they went from Hebrews to Jews. Okay. And how they used to mean the same thing, but they are not the same. And how they never were the same to some people. So of course they go into the priesthood and all these different things like that. And the revolt is where I think we begin to see how we can use this book to tap into our inner teacher. So it was something I wanted to read out of here for you. Okay. All right. The people were forced to convert to Judaism. What was they converting from? Okay. The people were forced to convert from Judaism. And it says Simon's son, Aristobulus, the first, succeeded him. And he says he continued his father's conquest, subduing the people in the north and converting them to Judaism and gaining control over Galilee. And it says, after treating his mother with the utmost cruelty, imprisoning 3 of his brothers and having another brother killed, he died of remorse and a painful disease. and he was the first of the Hasmonean kings of the Hasmoneans to style himself as a king. Now, why is this important? Before it wasn't no kings. Before it wasn't no king. So all this kingly stuff we hear talked about later, he established himself as a king with the cruelty that he used to overcome the people. Now they also talk about this time also being the time of Alexander. People say the Great, but Alexander the Conqueror, the homie Alexandra, and they give a Hasmonean family. Now I'm going to close this because, again, like I said, I can continue on and on in here. And there was actually one place where I saw how the Moors could have taken some of this text to stand on what they've been saying all along. And also I thought about the Hebrew Israelites and what they've said about some of the things that we haven't been taught and the things that have been hid from us in terms about who we are. The importance of reading books that take you deeper into the inner teacher is that what it does is, regardless of what you've been lied about, misled about, you begin to grow your intuition to decide and see what works best for you, right? So, and what applies to you. Now, I am big on definitions and roots of words and all kinds of things like that. So as I'm going through and I'm seeing all these things about the importance of really understanding this work, I said to myself, well, I know that metaphysically, every name of every person, every name of every tribe, every name of every land or land mass really has to do with inner stuff. You know what I'm saying? So what did I do? I pulled out my metaphysical dictionary. Mind y'all, I was up to 3:30. So just, you had to listen, I'm telling you, it got deep. I'm gonna cut my bill in a second because trust me, I was cooking so hard I had to stop. And so I go into the metaphysical dictionary, and I've been using this metaphysical dictionary since 96, maybe 96. And it's usually not many words I can't find in it. I'm going through no Maccabees. Wait a minute, what? So then they said the Maccabees in this book was also the Hasmoneans, right? I go to the H's. Any Hasmoneans? No Hasmoneans. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let me go back into this book. Who else was around? The Samaritans were around. The Sanhedrin were around. So if the Sanhedrin were mentioned and the Samaritans were the other group that he conquered, why is the information about the Maccabees not there? Or these Hasmoneans? What is it really? What is it? What is a Hasmonean? What faculty of the body does this relate to? What part? Is it the actual intuition itself? Could it possibly be the search for the internal truth, like many of the Gnostic texts are? So let me just say my interest was definitely repeat in going into this. And trust me, I'm gonna find me some metaphysical definitions for them words, because I ain't gonna let that go. Trust me, I ain't letting it go. Trust me, I'm not letting it go. But I will say this: just in closing this part, and I'll give it to you and let you ask some questions. I said the Psalm 151 is in here for all my Bible folk, for all my theologians, my scholars, my seekers. If you've read the Bible that we have now, you'll know that it only has 150 Psalms in it. And this one was one that was said to be kept out for various reasons. You know, they give some different reasons here why it was kept out. But what I'll do is I won't read it all, because you know, as we can, the Psalms can get kind of long. But I thought it was some points in here that were important that needed to be pointed out. So it says, as anybody who's read the Psalms, like I said, you know, usually they have a little subtitle underneath it, whatever. So this one is no different. Psalm 151, the hallelujah of David, the son of Jesse. You need to know who David is, and you need to know who Jesse is to really truly understand what you can get from this text. And I'm saying that metaphysically, not in the story of the history that we know from this book they made up as part of their politics and their control source, right? So it says, smaller was I than my brothers, the youngest of the sons of my father. So he made me the shepherd of his flock and a ruler over his kids. My hands have made an instrument, and my fingers are lyre. And I have rendered glory to the Lord, though I within my soul. And it says, the mountains do not witness him, nor the hills proclaim. The trees have cherished my words, and the flock my works. For who can proclaim or can bespeak, and who can recount the deeds of the Lord? Everything has God seen, and everything has he heard, and he has heeded. And then it just goes on to, a couple more stanzas here. And what it tells us in this text is that where this particular text was found, they also found 2 lines to begin a Psalm 152. So you have to ask yourself, what some of these things were about. And it says also that the following text of the Psalms 151 talked about David's fight and victory over Goliath. And again, we have to remember, if this is teaching us, sharing with us ways to grow and overcome our inner our inner struggles, our inner battles, our inner strengths, right? Then we can see a reason why people would keep that out. Because if I can tell you how to defeat your inner demons, you know how to defeat me too. And you are no longer under my rule when you are free from that fear. Because most times the things that they embed in those books, even though they do have great things, is a lot of fear. And we see in this particular book from the textual tradition how they knew that. They took what was working in law and they said, well, hey, look, if you do this crime, we're going to send you to jail, or this is going to be your punishment. And if you do this other thing that we don't like, you're going to go to hell. So I got you in a constant state of, you will do whatever I say not to be punished. And that's how they wrote the history. Like everybody was down with it, but they wasn't. They were forced to be down with it. So when people talk about, in Islam, the only reason they did it is because they was forced, or in Christianity, they was forced. Being forced to follow these doctrines is not new. And the true freedom comes from being able to take these kind of books, whether they're the popular ones or the unpopular ones from the right hand or left hand path, and go in and defeat your demons. Face yourself. So a couple of questions I wrote down was, how do I battle negative thoughts or temptations? What stops me from living my life fully and authentically? Where do I find strength and guidance? How can I be more resilient and determined in the face of challenges? And what is justice to me, and how do I promote it? Because that's one of the things the Maccabees talk about, is about being free and being able to live their life without all of the restrictions of the people who were enforcing upon them the new ways that they were switching to based upon the decisions of the historians and the politicians. So, my offerings. My offerings, man. My offerings. Yo, and I can cook some more in this, I promise you. But it's like that's like a whole master class you would have to do.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. That's an entire master class right there. Yeah, that's a whole semester course at a university, week by week right there. With required readings, term papers, the whole nine, in class discussions. Yeah. Goodness. Man, well, we find some synchronicity somehow. I mean, if it's not in the books themselves, because I don't see the connection in the books, but I just happen to be wearing this hoodie today.
I saw that.
Yeah, wearing this hoodie today. Got that on there, and then I got ISUPK down there on the bottom there.
Yes.
Got it, yeah, that wasn't planned.
Not at all. Oh, and you know what? You talk about you can't see the way it's tied. I can show you directly the way it's tied, because it's talking about the solitude. What are we doing in the solitude? We dealing with the inner. We dealing with the inner. We refining the inner. We taking the things that's in there that may no longer serve us or may not be truly what our version of what love might be, or our understanding of what it might be, and changing it so we could truly experience the freedom to love. They were trying to have the freedom to live. That's part of it, is the freedom to love. And love is going to always feel restrictive and going to always feel, you know what I'm saying, tainted, when you're not able to, one, define what it is and what it looks like for yourself, thinking, and then being able to have the space to actually do it. The freedom from fear to live it in its entirety.
Did that. Yeah. You found you found the connection. Found the connection. Yeah, you found the space and the connection.
All about the inner work, and that's what we mostly talk about anyway. We are not here to convince anybody. Like I said, we study what we need. Right. This is for this. I need this. I need to free myself from some deep-seated fear. People put fear in you from the beginning. From the beginning. And most of us got that heaven-hell chip. Most of us got that chip that, we can't question authority. Whose authority? It was a room full of jokers that sat around and decided, you know what? We can make them do anything we want them to do if we tell them we're going to punish them. And because they in these ignorant states and they want to be led because they have no idea what they're doing, because we've disconnected them from their, culture and ancestry. Think about it. How did our ancestors teach love? Was that part of freedom? And vice versa.
Driving force. Yep. The driving force for freedom. When you gotta, when you have a very daunting task, and like I said, the number 21, That's not the Chaldean, but even if we relate it back to the tarot, and we talk about that hero's journey for the world card in tarot, you got this big, daunting journey ahead of you, and it seems like, it seems very overwhelming and intimidating because the enemy looks larger than you. The enemy seems like they have more soldiers than you, and they have bigger weapons than you. What do you use? You got to go deep inside yourself and find that passion and that love, and that's the force. And a lot of, and then if you go back to a lot of these modern movies, from the past 20, 30 years, and they have these overcoming odds they have to get through. What does it always go back to? It always go back to somebody being in love, or somebody either loving their people, or loving their significant other. They go back and beat all the bad guys and all the in the
villain. My brother. Yes.
They're able to overcome the villain, defeat the villain and the bad guys from the power of love.
The power of love. But it's interesting that you said smaller and all these guys bigger. What was the first thing he said? Smaller was I than my brothers, and the youngest of the sons. But he made me the shepherd of his flock and the ruler over his kids. So it don't matter that they bigger. Don't matter. Because you can go in and truly know self and be able to run all of that. You can handle all of that. You can shepherd all of that. You lead that. That talks about that really goes into, and again, this is not trying to take the conversation all the way as deep as it can go, but this goes into realizing the different things inside of us. It's like, people make fun and talk about multiple personalities and all these things like that. I'm not even talking about the mental health aspect of that. I'm talking about how we have all these conflicting emotions inside of us. So you can say I was the smallest of my father's children. I'm here, and my brothers, all my incels, my siblings, you know what I'm saying? All of that in there. We really, I think that the sad part for me sometimes when I think about the limitations that fear puts on people is we don't get to use our imagination. I'm a big anime head, and anime is always talking about the hero's journey, the arc, where we are, and y'all should join me for my nerd talk on comics and all things anime, because it is awesome. But nonetheless, we talk about these hero arcs, these journeys. And one of the things I think that's sad also is that they always make us look at the end as the important part of the journey, when the importance is the journey itself. Yeah. And you only get to know that by starting the journey and really respecting and examining where you are in the journey. Why do I think like this? What do I think? What are my morals? What are my standards? What are my thoughts about love? Because if you're going to ask yourself about love, don't you got to ask yourself about hate?
Yo,
let's go back to them love songs. It's a thin line between love and hate. The sweetest woman in the world can be the meanest woman in the world if you make her that way. What? Let me tell you something. Esoteric talks on music, movies, and all things that is entertainment. I'm gonna tell you, it'll show you why many of us are locked in the boxes that we are. And that'll show us the reason why the music that's written today is so important. And it comes from the minds of the people. The minds of the people are what you see and reflected in their music. They write these things because this is what's reflected in their reality. whether it's healthy or whether it's not. This is what they experience. And this is what they promoting. And I just know for myself as a grandparent, you know what I'm saying? It was hard enough for me raising my children and keeping them away from all the rigmarole. I can't even imagine now when you got a phone in your hand that can connect you all over to the world and every piece of information, whether I want you to know it or not. And you don't even know if it's right and exact. So this is why going in and trusting our own, getting used to and trusting our own intuition and having these conversations, not just in the institutions, i.e. churches, schools, all this place, but with each other, sitting down deliberately and breaking some of these chains, breaking the chains of psychological slavery, pal, you know, this is where we are. This is where we are, man. That's my build, y'all. Original Maccabees Bible with Psalm 151. Check it out. Check it out. And Brother Nick will have all of that put down for y'all. Promise you. And I will put those questions and a few others. I will get those over to Nick so you can put them down in the description as well. And hey, talk back to us. You know, like we said, we're coming up on a year. I know all those numbers and stuff usually reflect what's going on, but let me tell you, we cooking over here. And if you ain't here with us, you missing out. So that's what I'm gonna tell you. But then again, are you missing out? You might be the op. Stay over there where you at. Anyway, do you got any questions, anything that popped out to you about the book that I shared?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of alluded to it. So maybe you'll go back into it a little bit. But I I don't know if I should even ask, because if I ask this question, you might go on an hour build on. But you did mention it. You did bring up the division between the division amongst the Jewish faith or the Judaism, and I'm thinking about what were some of those differences, and then you also brought up the Hebrew and Jews not being the same. So I was thinking about those distinctions, and then also Israelite, or if that's more of a modern thing. But that was the first, or one of the things that I was thinking about. You know what? Let me just put a couple things together first, and then I'll come back to that question. So yeah, one of those things was definitely the division within the faith and the distinctions between Hebrews, Jews, Israelites. I'm also thinking about what the time period too. I know you kind of mentioned that transition period, but outside of the Bible, when you're just looking at the Jewish or the Hebrew texts, and you think about those books alone, without the New Testament, like the Torah and the Talmud and the Tanakh, where the Maccabees kind of fits into those Jewish texts. That's something else or Hebrew text, that's something else that came to mind. And then when you're talking about the metaphysical aspects of it, I thought about going back to almost a year ago, one of the books that I brought, How to Understand Your Bible by Manly P. Hall. He went into both the Old and the New Testament. So in dealing with how those names have metaphysical meanings and how they relate to astrology and the Kabbalah and Gnosticism and I guess Jewish mysticism, because I guess Gnosticism would be more associated with like the New Testament side of Christianity, but you also had the Jewish mysticism and the Kabbalah, and like I said, the astrological aspects of it. So we see how your offering for this week not only ties into our previous episode with the left-hand path, but also what I brought almost a year ago with the Manly P. Hall and how to understand your Bible. There's definitely some similarities. He went in there and broke down the name, the occult or metaphysical meaning or breakdown of Israel and things like that, and some of those stories from the Old Testament. So I thought about that, and I think one more thing that I thought about with with that, I might have touched on it already. I'm just looking at my notes. I was thinking about how it fits into the other text, but I guess how does it fit into the narrative? I guess that's the word that I'm looking for. How do the Maccabees fit into the Israelite narrative? Because it seems like throughout all of these Israelite books, they're going through, some type of trial or some type of battle. Like they have a long history within those religious texts. The Israelites, uh, the promised lands and wars against, other nations, and, God bringing down God, Yahweh, well, the whole Yahweh El thing, that's a whole other conversation. But whatever that God was in the Old Testament, the judgments he's bringing down on the Israelites and the curses is just, yeah, like how it fits into the overall narrative of the Israelites. So these are all kind of things that's popping up into my head. And just with all of those points I brought up, that's a whole separate 2 hour course in of itself.
It really is. It really is. And it really is. It really is. And they talk about the first ruler of Judah, and I think that's how they tie in the Israelite aspect of it. And it was interesting. One of the things I had initially planned when I was going to use this book for that particular course I was putting together was including some of the Hebrew Israelite brothers that I've known over the years, and including some of the Moors that practice the Moorish science in over the years, because a lot of the ancient texts that they talk about, you can see when you ask the question about these different splits and factions and all of these things like this. First of all, we have to remember metaphysically, like you said, all these things mean something else. And for the most part, you'll have a group of people who don't even believe we really having this experience, that it's all in our head. So
right, that part, yeah.
Because one of the reasons why I went looking immediately for into the metaphysical dictionary was I wanted to know who was these people, these Maccabees, and what did they represent? Who was this Simon? Who was this because we know that it's covered in the 12 faculties of man, how each aspect of the brain deals with a different disciple, and how that disciple represents a different function in the spiritual growth and on the spiritual journey. So it's like none of these, for those who be like, well, how long is they going to talk about that? Well, I'm going to talk about it till I don't have no more breath. You know what I'm saying? How about that? Because it never gets boring to me, because I'll never know it all. You know what I'm saying? I'll never know it all. And even when I know it all, that's liable to change as I begin to get deeper and learn more, inside. Because we have to remember, it's so much more than these written books. Like I said, I've never heard of that author that you brought, and I am in the bookstore constantly. I am in health and wellness conferences constantly. In these circles, how have I never heard of this man? And he's how many followers did you say he had? Over 5 million followers or something?
Mm-hmm.
I ain't never heard of him at all. But what this shows us is that, we need these kind of spaces where we can share what we got going on and what we want to know. Because see, one of the things I wouldn't want to sit here and do is sit here and pretend to know all the intricacies of the practices of the Hebrew Israelites without them sit here and give their own testimony to what they think about this book. because I know I've seen Hebrew Israelite brothers with this book and a few others. So my thing is, I'd like to know what their take on it is. Because because my thing is this, we know that there's not one of the three major religions that hasn't been dissected into at least 70 sects each. It tells us that in the Quran. 73, 72, 75 sects of one type of, practice. You can run off a laundry list of how many kinds of Christians it is. And the little tiny idiosyncrasies that separate them seem almost idiotic when you think about it. You know what I mean? It seems almost idiotic. And it's like, but what does it tell us? That men are always find something to argue about.
Yep, absolutely.
And you know what I'm saying? And so when we use these things not to argue with people, but to show them how it can lead to success on the inner spiritual journey, because that's what we really ultimately trying to do. All this outside riffing about land and all these different things like that, that's the worldly stuff. The freedom that we really want to feel is true freedom. The love we want to feel is true love. The thing we want to feel is truly gifted to be wherever it is we are and to be our greatest versions of ourselves. And that's difficult, with all of these rules that have been put in place by all of these different factions. You know what I mean? It's like you got to step out of all the boxes and just look at them where they are and be like, you know what? This is all right. This is all right. This is all right. And you will have people say, because I've had people say, oh, they just confused. They confused because they can't pick one. So they picking something from everything else. You can't pick how you going. Let me tell you something, yo.
Tell
them. I'm going to do whatever is best for me. I've tried to live in the box. And when you ask questions in the box, the way you feel made to be so small in these answers they give you. I remember asking a question one time and they said, you just got to believe, yo. Just stop asking questions. Girl, you could be go get married. Go be somebody's wife and shut up. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, I got questions. You know what I'm saying? I got questions. And it's that, again, it goes back to your book, In the Solitude, and being able to realize when I can't get answers from the box, am I willing to go sit in my own and just get to sort it out? To sort it out. I think that when some people approach their studies, they pick it up and they try to do like we do with a school book or with a novel, just read it from front to back. You need to stop. If it's a word that you come across that you don't know, write it down. Look it up.
Look it up. Yep.
If it's a paragraph that you got to read 3 times because you ain't get it the first 2 times, read it 3 times. There's no rush. There's no rush and there's no right and wrong way to do this. But if you want to get to the deeper, if you want to use these things, these gifts that apparent, my thing is this, you don't keep nothing away from nobody unless you think it's a reason that they can use it to be free. You know what I mean? Like if this was something that helped to further restrict, it'd be right there in the Bible with everything else. Same thing for the Apocrypha, same thing for all the other things. They put all that on the table and say, yep, y'all can have all of that. But no, they'd be like, don't read this because, that's the devil. Don't read this because that's going to take you to hell. Don't read this. And it's like, come on, man. We talking about BCE, before the Christian era. Before the Christian era. And if you want to be truly, I'm not a law person in the way of sitting down studying maritime law and all that good stuff like that. I know how to navigate. Don't get that screwed up. But at the same time, I was sitting here saying to myself, my mother used to have a saying, who died and left you boss? Who said you could write all the daggone rules and everybody else got following? Who is you? You know what I'm saying? So these councils, they used to come together and decide what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Who are you, yo? Who are you? And how does, and what does, how does it differ me going in and doing the same thing you doing, deciding what works for me? You said that works for me. You don't even know me. Oh, well, generally, we know all the people's problems. No, you know. The little nuances, no, you don't. You know what I'm saying? But again, I promise you, this stuff right here, I just encourage people, take some time, get to know yourselves. That solitude that Nick is talking about in his book, that space right there can be used for so much more, because there's a level of love called agape, people don't want, because you got to use the God word, I'm so scared of people. I'm so tired of people being scared of that word. This is just, but I get it. But they talk about agape love and how this love is a different love than other kinds of love. And I think, saying one of my former Professor Barnes, giving you a shout out, Essex County College, what I'm saying, sociology of the family, what I'm saying, he talked to us about the levels of love.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? This was back in 92, 93, somewhere in there. But I never forget sitting in that class, and he was talking about how him and his wife had been married for like 38 years. And he said, for every one of those levels of love is a level of hell.
Mm.
And he said, because love, he said, the decision to love comes with the wisdom and experience to apply it. And I was just like, you know what? That's a bar, yo.
It is. It is.
Bar, son. I'm like, that's a bar, yo. It's a wisdom thing, man. And you don't get that without the experience. So even when we sit down and we begin to find a way to have these conversations with the youth, with ourselves, whatever, with each other, it's still going to be things we have questions about. It's still going to be things we refine. It's still, this is why it's important. It's just important, yo. And I don't want to start the rambling because I really want to just build some more and give some more facts of it. But I'm just like,
I know you do.
but I'm looking at the time. We can't keep our people all long, yo. We be having y'all. But look, every 2:30 or every other Saturday, we are here, yo. And during the week, we are all over the place. Like I said, we are on Clubhouse. We are on Instagram. We got some things. We got Human Rights Week coming up. Oh, y'all can't miss that. Phew, we got some things lined up for y'all folks. And the book we're going to talk about that week, interesting is all I'm going to say. I'm going to try to get my hands on a copy of it because it's definitely unread for me because it's new. But what I'll say is I really appreciated coming across this this unread book, and I all I could do is giggle and smile about how I jumped right down the rabbit hole with it, just like I did the very first time I seen it, and how how my questions that I initially asked have matured because I have, and the things I want to know are deeper than the things I wanted to know then.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's never a one and done. Always got to come
never
back
a one and done. Never a one and done. I don't know who out there listening to me. Don't y'all throw none of them books away. And if you do, send them on over here. Because we always want more books.
Yeah. That's
We
right.
always want more books. And don't forget, we donate books to the prisons. We donate books to the young people, the community. We are working on our little drop off pickup little library box. So right now we are doing a lot of things, keep people informed, and always we are inviting people to always join Mount Lisa Temple for some of our studies. We always got something awesome going on, and for some of our talks in different spaces. So with that being said, Nick, like if you ain't got nothing else for me, you could wrap us up and
All
take
right.
us out of this John.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Yes, yes. So that is, that self-transformation in the journey was definitely the theme of this episode. And you know how they say on the airplane when you start losing that cabin pressure and the mask drop down from the ceiling. They said before you help someone else put their oxygen mask on, you got to put yours on first before you help someone else. So that's also what we're essentially telling you here about that solitude and that inner journey. You can't deal with someone else, help someone else, love someone else until you love yourself first, until you transform yourself, until you grow yourself, get that knowledge of self, that self mastery, that self transformation, to close out. But always, we thank you for joining us. You have been in tune to the sights and sounds of UnRead Book Review with Nick and Rue. I believe this is episode 16. Yes, episode
Woo!
16. And
Moving.
we'll be back on December 14th with our special guest, special
Yes.
author in the building. So that's the one. But thank you for watching. Continue to be kind to yourself and kind to other kind people and strive to be the best version of yourself. We are out. Peace.